that is, swimming pools, movie stars.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
When the Beverly Hillbillies first hit American TV screens in 1962, nobody expected a comedy about a poor mountain family striking oil and moving to Beverly Hills to become one of the biggest shows in television history. For 9 years, it dominated ratings and captured hearts. But behind its lighthearted humor and catchy theme song lay some truly strange, shocking, and even dark secrets. From unsettling real-life tragedies to odd legal loopholes and behind-the-scenes surprises, this beloved sitcom hid more than anyone realized. In this deep dive, we uncover 20 weird, fascinating, and verifiable facts about the Beverly Hillbillies, beginning with a connection that forever links the show to one of Hollywood's most haunting crimes. A future murder victim was a recurring cast member. Few realize that one of Hollywood's most tragic figures once graced the Beverly Hillbillies, set with charm and beauty. Sharon Tate, who would later become an icon of the 1960s and the victim of the infamous Manson family murders in 1969, appeared in around 15 episodes of the show as Janet Trigo, the bank secretary with striking looks and calm wit. Tate's recurring role was early in her career, before she found fame in films like Valley of the Dolls and The Fearless Vampire Killers. Her time on the Beverly Hillbillies was cheerful and lighthearted, an ironic contrast to the horrific fate that awaited her just a few years later. What makes this fact so eerie is the duality. On screen, Tate helped sell the wholesome, carefree image of rural America, finding its place in Beverly Hills luxury. Off-screen, her life would intersect with one of the darkest chapters in Hollywood history. When news of her murder broke, it stunned the show's fans who recognized her from the series. It cast an unintended chilling shadow over reruns that had once been pure fun. Even more haunting, Tate's character embodied innocence and optimism, qualities that made her death even harder for the public to process. Watching her smiling on the show today feels like a time capsule of lost potential. A reminder that the entertainment world often conceals deep sorrow beneath its laughter. The theme song once advertised cigarettes and cereal. The opening theme of the Beverly Hillbillies, The Ballad of Jed Clampett, is one of television's most recognizable tunes. But most fans have never heard the original versions that aired during the show's early run. These included sponsor-specific lyrics advertising products like Winston cigarettes and Kellogg's Corn Flakes. Yes, the same tune that introduced a family-friendly sitcom once doubled as a jingle selling filtered tobacco. In the early 1960s, product sponsorships were a major part of TV culture. The series sponsors often requested integrated promotions within the episodes or theme music itself. In one version, the song seamlessly transitions into an upbeat Winston ad, with the cast cheerfully promoting cigarettes as tasting good like a cigarette should. Modern viewers find this shocking, especially since the Beverly Hillbillies was widely enjoyed by families and children. The idea that a primetime sitcom used its theme to sell cigarettes now feels surreal. It reflects how deeply advertising was woven into American entertainment, and how much cultural norms have shifted since. These modified versions were eventually removed, as cigarette advertising faced restrictions on television by 1971. Today, they exist mainly as rare recordings and archived footage. The serial versions were less controversial, but equally odd, replacing cigarette lines with lines about breakfast flakes. This sponsorship strategy turned a simple theme into a piece of advertising history, blending the wholesome humor of the Clampetts with the commercialism of mid-century America. Looking back, it's both amusing and unsettling, a perfect snapshot of a different era in television, where even a hillbilly banjo tune could sell tobacco with a smile. The show's copyright loophole made dozens of episodes public domain. In an unusual twist of entertainment law, dozens of the Beverly Hillbillies episodes have fallen into the public domain, not by design, but because of a clerical oversight. During the 1960s and 70s, TV networks were responsible for renewing copyrights after an initial term expired. However, many early episodes of the Beverly Hillbillies never had their copyrights renewed properly, allowing them to lapse into public ownership. The result? Roughly 55 episodes from the show's first season became legally available for anyone to copy, sell, or distribute. That's why you can find grainy, poorly mastered versions of the Beverly Hillbillies on budget DVD collections or free streaming platforms today. While the public domain status made it easy for fans to access the show, it also led to inconsistencies in quality and presentation. Some versions even lack the original theme song or credits because those elements remained under separate copyright protection. This situation is particularly strange given the show's immense popularity and commercial success. Few major network series have suffered such a slip. For historians, it serves as an example of how casual the industry once was with intellectual property and how much money was potentially lost due to legal neglect. Today, those public domain episodes circulate freely, often labeled as classic television or bundles on YouTube and other platforms. They provide a glimpse into early television archiving practices where no one foresaw the immense future value of syndicated reruns. In short, the show that made CBS millions inadvertently became one of the easiest to watch for free, thanks to paperwork that was never filed. It's a fittingly weird legacy for a show that thrived on accidental fortune. John Wayne's cameo came with a bottle of bourbon as payment. When Hollywood legend John Wayne appeared on the Beverly Hillbillies in 1967, it created one of television's most legendary crossover moments. The Duke played himself in an episode titled "The Indians Are Coming," making a surprise appearance that delighted fans of both westerns and sitcoms. But it wasn't his cameo that made history, it was his unique choice of payment. When producers asked Wayne what he wanted for the guest spot, he reportedly laughed and said, "Just give me a fifth of bourbon and we'll call it even." The production crew obliged, and Wayne filmed his segment, adding an unforgettable slice of Americana to the show. At the time, the Beverly Hillbillies was at the height of its popularity, and securing a guest appearance from one of Hollywood's most respected actors was a major coup. Wayne's relaxed attitude and humor made the episode even more memorable. This anecdote perfectly encapsulates the laid-back charm of mid-century television, an era before multi-million-dollar guest contracts. The fact that one of cinema's biggest stars accepted whiskey as payment shows how informal yet endearing Hollywood relationships could be during television's golden age. Fans still discuss this moment decades later, and it remains one of the show's proudest and strangest behind-the-scenes tales. Wayne's cameo brought together two vastly different worlds: the serious masculinity of the Western frontier and the comedic absurdity of the Clampett's Beverly Hills adventures. And in a sense, it was a symbolic handoff from the cowboy heroes who defined early Hollywood to the television icons who would soon dominate American culture. Critics despised the show, but audiences made it a phenomenon. When the Beverly Hillbillies debuted on CBS in September 1962, critics were merciless. The New York Times dismissed it as strained and unfunny. Variety called it a painful experience. Media reviewers couldn't fathom how a show about rural hillbillies, adjusting to Beverly Hills life, could appeal to anyone beyond small-town America. But the critics were spectacularly wrong. Within 3 weeks, the show skyrocketed to the #1 spot in national ratings, an almost unheard-of feat at the time. It held that position for 2 consecutive years and remained in the top 20 for much of its 9-season run. The disconnect between the press and the public revealed a deeper cultural divide. City critics viewed the show as lowbrow and unsophisticated, but ordinary Americans saw something endearing in the Clampett's simple honesty and bewildered charm as they navigated high society. It was a satire that, intentionally or not, turned class commentary into comedy gold. Creator Paul Henning understood something the critics didn't, that people loved seeing decency and naivety triumph over pretension. The show's humor wasn't about mocking rural life, it was about celebrating common sense in a world gone materialistic. The phenomenon became a pop culture case study. The Beverly Hillbillies drew more than 60 million viewers at its peak, more than half of America's television-owning households. Despite elite ridicule, it became a symbol of how underestimated middle America's tastes were. In hindsight, the show's success over its critics illustrates one of the biggest ironies in TV history. The so-called silliest sitcom of its time turned out to be one of the most enduring. The mansion exterior became one of the most expensive homes in U.S. history. The sprawling mansion that served as the Clampett's new Beverly Hills home wasn't just a set, it was a real place, and one of the most luxurious properties in Los Angeles. Known as the Chartwell Mansion, This palatial estate in Bel Air became an icon of wealth and excess thanks to the Beverly Hillbillies. Built in 1933 by architect Sumner Spaulding, the French chateau-style home was originally owned by Arnold Kirkby, a millionaire hotel magnate. Decades later, its fame would extend far beyond television. In 2019, the Chartwell Mansion sold for around $150 million, making it one of the most expensive home sales in U.S. history. The estate sits on more than 10 acres, with manicured gardens, a ballroom, a wine cellar, and even a secret tunnel connecting parts of the property. For viewers of the 1960s, the house represented the Clampetts' sudden leap from rags to riches. Ironically, while the family's wealth was fictional, the mansion's grandeur was very real. Its old-world European design stood in stark contrast to the show's depiction of simple country folk, amplifying the comedic absurdity of their situation. Even today, tourists and classic TV fans seek out the property, which remains a symbol of old Hollywood glamour. Its legacy bridges entertainment and real estate history. The mansion that once hosted America's favorite hillbillies later became a billionaire's playground. The juxtaposition is striking. A sitcom about simplicity and humility immortalized one of America's grandest homes. The Chartwell Mansion's journey from television backdrop to luxury landmark is one of the Beverly Hillbillies' most fascinating real-world footnotes. Jed Clampett was originally written as a fool until Buddy Ebsen changed it. In the early drafts of the Beverly Hillbillies, the character of Jed Clampett was written as a classic country bumpkin, a man so naive that nearly every decision he made would backfire for laughs. But Buddy Ebsen, the actor cast in the role, had other ideas. He believed that audiences wouldn't truly love a man who was just a fool. Instead, he wanted Jed to be wise in his simplicity, a moral compass surrounded by chaos. Ebsen approached creator Paul Henning and convinced him to adjust Jed's character. Together, they redefined him as a shrewd but humble man who, despite lacking formal education, possessed a deep sense of fairness, patience, and understanding. The shift transformed the entire tone of the show. Rather than laughing at Jed, viewers laughed with him. His quiet logic often exposed the absurdity of the high society world around him. This small creative change helped elevate the Beverly Hillbillies beyond slapstick humor into something more enduring, an affectionate satire about class and values. Behind the scenes, Ebsen's insistence was a rare example of an actor influencing a sitcom's moral core. His portrayal made Jed Clampett one of television's most likable patriarchs, the very heart of the show's success. It's a fascinating reminder that the best comedy often comes from truth. By grounding Jed in decency rather than stupidity, Buddy Ebsen helped craft a character who still resonates with audiences today. Proof that authenticity, even in a hillbilly comedy, always wins. Jethro Bodine's actor was a college graduate in real life. Jethro Bodine was the Beverly Hillbillies' lovable simpleton, a country boy convinced that his sixth-grade education qualified him for genius-level thinking. His ridiculous confidence and misused logic made him one of the show's most hilarious characters. But the man behind Jethro, Max Baer Jr., couldn't have been more different. In real life, Baer was a college-educated, sharp-minded individual. He graduated from Santa Clara University with a degree in business administration and a minor in philosophy. He wasn't anything like the bumbling Jethro, though he played him with impeccable comedic timing. This stark contrast between character and actor became one of the show's weirdest ironies. Fans assumed Baer shared Jethro's dim-witted traits, but behind the scenes, he was articulate and analytical. In interviews, Baer often laughed about how hard it was to convince casting directors that he wasn't actually a fool after the series ended. His portrayal was so convincing that it typecast him for years. Despite trying to branch into writing, producing, and directing, Hollywood continued to see him as Jethro. Yet, Baer made peace with it. He even later invested in a project to build a Beverly Hillbillies-themed casino, proving he was every bit the clever businessman Jethro only dreamed of being. This real-life inversion between actor and role shows just how deeply the Beverly Hillbillies blurred fiction and reality for its stars. Baer might have played the fool, but in life, he was anything but. The show was canceled in the Great Rural Purge of 1971. By the early 1970s, the Beverly Hillbillies still had a loyal audience. But CBS had other plans. The network wanted to shift its image toward urban, youth-focused programming. Executives felt that rural-themed shows no longer appealed to the modern American viewer. So, in a sweeping and infamous move, CBS canceled the Beverly Hillbillies, alongside Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, and Hee Haw, in what became known as the Rural Purge. The irony was bitter. The Beverly Hillbillies had once been the network's crown jewel, drawing massive ratings and defining its identity. Yet, in an era of social change and growing city culture, executives saw it as out of step with the times. The Rural Purge became one of television's most talked-about transitions. Critics and historians later noted that it marked the end of wholesome, country-style programming and ushered in edgier, socially conscious shows like All in the Family and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Fans, however, didn't agree with the decision. They flooded CBS with letters protesting the cancellations, accusing the network of turning its back on traditional American values. In hindsight, the Purge revealed a larger cultural shift, how television began catering more to advertisers' desired demographics than to its audience's loyalty. The Beverly Hillbillies had united millions of families across backgrounds, but its rural charm couldn't survive changing corporate priorities. Thus, the Clampetts story ended not because people stopped watching, but because television itself changed around them. The theme song became a Billboard hit. The Ballad of Jed Clampett wasn't just a catchy TV tune, it was a chart-topping single. Written by Paul Henning, the show's creator, and performed by bluegrass legends Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, the song became an instant hit. It climbed to #1 on Billboard's Hot Country chart, and even cracked the top 40 on the Hot 100, peaking at number 44 in 1963. This was a groundbreaking achievement. No other TV theme song had ever reached such heights on the music charts at the time. Its mix of twangy banjos and playful lyrics perfectly captured the spirit of the show, making it a cultural phenomenon beyond television. Fans who had never listened to bluegrass before were suddenly humming along. Radio stations across America played it daily, introducing mainstream audiences to the sounds of rural music in a way that hadn't happened before. For many Americans, the Ballad of Jed Clampett was their first exposure to bluegrass, and it stuck. The song's success also boosted the popularity of its performers, Flatt and Scruggs, whose careers soared as a result. Their appearances on the Beverly Hillbillies helped solidify their reputation as country legends. What began as a theme for a sitcom turned into a musical milestone, symbolizing how a comedy about hillbillies managed to influence American pop culture far beyond television. The next time you hear that opening line, come and listen to a story about a man named Jed. Remember that it wasn't just TV magic, it was a hit record too. A Beverly Hillbillies casino almost happened. In one of the strangest post-sitcom stories ever, actor Max Baer Jr., who played Jethro Bodine, set out decades later to build the Beverly Hillbillies-themed casinos and hotels. After acquiring the show's licensing rights from CBS, Baer Jr. envisioned a sprawling entertainment complex in Nevada, complete with a 200-foot oil derrick, a replica of the Clampetts' truck, and themed attractions like Granny's Shotgun Wedding Chapel. He believed nostalgia could become big business, merging the beloved series with Vegas-style tourism. For years, Baer Jr. pursued investors and fought zoning battles in Reno and Carson City. Despite media buzz, the plan never materialized. City councils and environmental concerns blocked construction. While the casino was never built, its concept stands as a bizarre tribute to the enduring cultural power of the Beverly Hillbillies. Few other sitcoms have inspired their own casino proposal decades after cancellation. Baer's persistence revealed both his business savvy and his lasting connection to the character that defined him. Even though the project fizzled, he proved that the Clampetts' brand of good-natured simplicity could still capture imaginations in the high-stakes world of gambling. In a way, the unbuilt casino symbolizes the Beverly Hillbillies' legacy, a dream of wealth and success that always carries a touch of whimsy and absurdity. The show spawned a surprising range of merchandise. At its height, the Beverly Hillbillies became more than a television show. It was a full-blown marketing phenomenon. From lunchboxes and board games to comic books and trading cards, the Clampetts were everywhere. Dell Comics produced an 18-issue run featuring the family's adventures in cartoon form, and toy companies like Milton Bradley released games that let players strike oil or buy Beverly Hills mansions. There were even branded jigsaw puzzles and paper dolls based on Ellie Mae and Granny. This early merchandising boom revealed just how deeply the Beverly Hillbillies had seeped into American culture. The characters' rural charm translated into collectible nostalgia for fans of all ages. By the time the 1993 feature film reboot arrived, the franchise extended into video game territory, with a PC DOS game that let users relive the Clampetts' misadventures in digital form. For a show mocked by critics as unsophisticated, its commercial reach was anything but simple. Decades before modern cross-media franchises became the norm, the Beverly Hillbillies demonstrated how television could drive consumer culture. These relics now fetch surprising prices among collectors, turning once cheap novelty items into rare pop culture artifacts. They stand as proof that sometimes the most underestimated shows end up leaving the deepest footprint. Real bluegrass legends appeared as themselves. The infectious twang of the Beverly Hillbillies theme wasn't the only musical mark the show made. Legendary bluegrass duo Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, who performed The Ballad of Jed Clampett, also guest-starred on multiple episodes, appearing as themselves. Their on-screen cameos gave national audiences a face to the music they were already humming every week. It was one of the first times bluegrass musicians gained primetime exposure, helping the genre reach new listeners far beyond its southern roots. Flatt and Scruggs brought authenticity to the show's soundscape. Their banjo and guitar interplay mirrored the Clampetts' cheerful spirit, while grounding the comedy in real Appalachian culture. Paul Henning, the show's creator, saw this fusion of genuine folk music and sitcom storytelling as a way to celebrate rural America rather than mock it. The partnership paid off. Record sales for the duo soared, and bluegrass experienced a short-lived revival during the show's peak years. Fans who discovered them through the Beverly Hillbillies followed their music long after the sitcom ended. This collaboration stands as one of television's most underrated cultural exchanges, where fictional hillbillies helped real musicians bring their art to mainstream America. The Clampetts' truck became a museum exhibit. One of television's most recognizable vehicles, the Clampetts' rickety old truck, wasn't just a prop. It was a heavily modified 1921 Oldsmobile Model 37 that actually ran. After filming ended, it didn't vanish into a backlot. Instead, it found a new home in a museum. Today, the original Clampett truck is proudly displayed at the Ralph Foster Museum in Point Lookout, Missouri, on the campus of the College of the Ozarks. The museum, dedicated to preserving American history and culture, treats the vehicle as a piece of pop culture heritage. Fans visiting the museum can see the same truck that Jed, Granny, Ellie Mae, and Jethro rode to California, complete with its makeshift furniture and wooden attachments. It's both funny and strangely moving to stand before the machine that carried a fictional family from poverty to prosperity. The fact that a sitcom prop now rests beside historic artifacts highlights how deeply the Beverly Hillbillies embedded itself into American identity. What began as a comedic exaggeration of hillbilly life became a nostalgic emblem worthy of preservation. Even decades later, that rickety truck still represents the dream that made America laugh, the idea that with a little luck and a lot of heart, anyone could strike oil. The Clampett family's wild backstory was full of absurdities. Behind the laughs, the Beverly Hillbillies writers invented a bizarre and exaggerated genealogy for the Clampett clan. According to show lore, Jed's grandfather was 98 when he married an 18-year-old. Other relatives were mentioned with impossible histories, feuding cousins, long-lost mountain families, and stories that blurred myth with memory. These strange family facts appeared sporadically throughout the series, adding layers of absurd humor. The writers treated the Clampetts' past as elastic, expanding or contradicting it whenever the joke required. Granny once mentioned an ancestor who fought in the Civil War, armed only with a skillet, while Jethro proudly claimed descent from a line of scientific geniuses who accidentally blew up their own barns. These embellishments gave the Beverly Hillbillies a folktale quality, transforming the Clampetts from mere characters into larger-than-life archetypes. Their tall tales echoed the oral traditions of real Appalachian storytelling, where exaggeration was part of the fun. Through this humor, the show celebrated rural identity rather than mocking it. By making the family's roots comically impossible, it suggested that greatness or ridiculousness can come from anywhere. Even today, fans debate which of the Clampetts' ancestral claims were canon. The truth is, the writers never cared for consistency. What mattered was the laughter those outrageous stories inspired. Ellie Mae Clampett's character was both a tomboy and a pinup. Ellie Mae Clampett, played by Donna Douglas, was an unusual television creation for her time. She was strong, athletic, and independent, often wrestling men or wrestling critters with equal ease. Yet, she was also portrayed as a beauty icon, complete with perfect hair and charm. This odd balance between tomboy toughness and classic femininity made her stand out. Douglas herself embodied that duality. Off-screen, she was a devout Christian and former beauty queen who preferred quiet living to Hollywood glamour. Yet, fans adored her combination of country innocence and pin-up appeal. It reflected America's evolving image of womanhood in the 1960s, capable, confident, but still idealized. Ellie Mae's love of animals, often seen cuddling raccoons or baby bears, became her defining trait. Behind the scenes, Douglas handled many of those creatures herself, further proving she was no ordinary sitcom actress. Her character helped redefine what it meant to be both beautiful and bold on television, long before feminism reshaped TV roles for women. The episodes became public domain, but the theme song didn't. Here's a quirky legal twist. Dozens of Beverly Hillbillies episodes entered the public domain, but the show's famous theme song did not. When copyright renewals were mishandled, much of the first season lost protection, making the episodes free for anyone to use. However, The Ballad of Jed Clampett, written by Paul Henning and performed by Flatt and Scruggs, remained protected under separate copyright law. That meant anyone could distribute episodes, but not with the original music intact. As a result, countless cheap DVD releases replaced the theme with generic banjo tunes to avoid legal issues. The mismatch confused viewers, who wondered why their favorite opening song was missing. This odd separation highlights how differently various creative elements were registered and managed in early television. It's one of the rare instances where a show's body of work became public, while its signature sound remained off-limits. Even today, the legal quirk makes the Beverly Hillbillies a fascinating case study in intellectual property history. Writers made the Clampetts smart in their own way. One secret behind the Beverly Hillbillies' success was that its writers never portrayed the Clampetts as complete fools. While city folk ridiculed them, Jed, Granny, Ellie Mae, and Jethro often displayed more wisdom than their sophisticated neighbors. This subtle inversion of stereotypes gave the show moral depth beneath the comedy. Jed's calm logic frequently exposed the greed or vanity of the Beverly Hills elite, while Granny's homespun remedies, though ridiculous, were rooted in real Appalachian folk medicine. Even Jethro's misplaced confidence reflected the show's larger theme, that innocence and optimism could thrive where cynicism failed. Creator Paul Henning intentionally wrote the Clampetts as good-hearted people overwhelmed by wealth, not corrupted by it. Their simple values highlighted what society often overlooks: integrity, family, and common sense. That nuance turned what could have been an empty caricature into an enduring cultural satire. The Clampetts weren't stupid, they were pure, and that's what made them timeless. The show about hillbillies used a French chateau as their mansion. It's ironic that a show mocking Beverly Hills excess filmed its Clampett mansion scenes at one of the most luxurious estates in the city. The Chartwell Mansion, with its limestone facade and manicured terraces, wasn't a rustic mansion. It was modeled after an 18th century French chateau. The real mansion's ornate style contrasted sharply with the simplicity of the Clampetts, heightening the show's visual humor. Viewers saw Granny cooking possum stew in marble kitchens, and Jed lounging under crystal chandeliers. The contrast made the show's satire even sharper, rural humility colliding with European grandeur. The estate later appeared in commercials, films, and magazines, but it remains best known as the Beverly Hillbillies' home. It's proof of how perfectly the mansion's elegance amplified the Clampetts' absurd new life among the wealthy. Even today, the house remains a pop culture landmark that symbolizes the collision of two worlds, the working class and the elite. The show's legacy still endures worldwide. The Beverly Hillbillies ran for 9 seasons, producing 274 episodes from 1962 to 1971, and remains one of the most syndicated shows in TV history. Its humor, characters, and theme song have been translated into multiple languages and broadcast around the world. Reruns continue to attract nostalgic audiences who see the Clampetts as timeless reflections of simplicity, decency, and humor. The show's blend of innocence and irony inspired later sitcoms like Green Acres, The Simpsons, and even Modern Family, all of which use similar class clash dynamics. The show also helped pioneer the fish out of water formula, still common today. Ordinary people thrown into extraordinary situations. Even half a century later, its laughter resonates, reminding viewers that money doesn't buy wisdom or happiness. The Clampetts may have struck oil, but what they really discovered was America's love for underdogs who stay true to themselves. From its humble beginnings to its wild legacy, the Beverly Hillbillies proved that laughter could bridge class, culture, and time. What began as a simple story of country folk in the city became a mirror reflecting American values, innocence, integrity, and the absurdity of wealth. Decades later, its humor still feels fresh, its characters still beloved, and its message still clear. Wisdom isn't measured by money, and kindness never goes out of style. As the banjo fades and the Clampetts ride off once more, we're reminded that true richness lies in heart, not in Beverly Hills.